You are not broke. You are unopened. There is a difference between having nothing and carrying something that was never allowed to release, and in the next few minutes, you are going to see which one you actually are. Chosen one, somewhere around 3 in the morning last night, or maybe the night before, you woke up, for no reason you could explain. For a few seconds, before your mind caught up and filled the silence with worry, you felt something else entirely. You felt like a door had just moved somewhere far away, and for one breath, you were not afraid of what was on the other side of it. That was not random. Here is what I need you to understand before we go any further. Out of every chosen one hearing this message tonight, only 1% will actually receive what is about to be released. Not because God loves the other 99% less, because their minds were never prepared to hold it. And yours is being prepared right now, tonight, while you listen to every word of this. For a few moments, I am going to let the words that follow come exactly as they were given to me, because they were never meant to pass through me unchanged. I did not choose the 1% by chance. I chose them the moment their minds became ready to carry what their mouths had been asking for. You have been asking for years. Tonight is not a coincidence. It is an appointment that was written before you knew you needed one. By the end of this message, you will understand exactly what has been standing between you and the billions you were designed to steward, not chase. You will feel the exact moment your identity shifts from someone waiting to be given something to someone trusted to hold it once it arrives. And before this message ends, you will be given one specific thing you can do tonight, one thing that has nothing to do with luck and everything to do with what has actually been missing, because something has been quietly keeping real opportunity away from you, and chosen one, it was never God holding it back. There is a tightness that lives right behind your ribs every time you check what you have, every time you open an account and feel your stomach drop before your eyes even land on the number. That is not just stress. That is a signal, and most people spend their whole life mistaking it for weakness. You tell yourself it is because you are bad with money, or because you were never taught, or because you simply were not lucky enough, or because you prayed but did not pray hard enough. But none of that has ever been the real reason. There is a hidden pattern running underneath every one of those excuses. Quiet, consistent, older than you are. And in a few minutes, you are going to see it clearly for the first time in your life. This pattern is not a curse. It is not punishment. It is something that can be named, and once it is named, it can be removed. The same way light removes a shadow, simply by entering the room. For now, hold on to this. If you already feel that door moving somewhere inside you, if some part of you knows tonight is different from every other night you have sat with this same ache, type 1% right now, before we go further. Let this message know you are still here and still listening. Because what comes next is the part where everything you have been calling misfortune, bad timing, or bad luck finally gets named for what it actually is. Chosen one, let me show you 5 things that prove you are the 1%. Not because you are lucky, but because your spirit has been carrying evidence you never learned to read. 1. You keep sensing more is coming even when nothing in your bank account agrees with you. 2. You feel a strange responsibility for other people's breakthrough, almost like your own increase is somehow tied to theirs. 3. You get flashes of clarity about money and timing that do not come from research or advice. They simply arrive, uninvited, usually in the quiet moments. 4. Opportunities you never chased still somehow found their way to you, even if you were too tired, too doubtful, or too distracted to take them fully. 5. You feel a very specific kind of exhaustion after almost breakthroughs, the kind that only shows up when you came close to something real and watched it slip past anyway. If 2 or more of those describe you, this message was never a coincidence for you. I have watched this exact pattern for years now, across hundreds of people who look nothing alike, live nowhere near each other, and have never met, and it always follows the same order. First comes the ache, then comes the near miss, then comes a season of confusion, where the person starts to quietly believe God simply chose someone else instead of them. And then, if they are still listening by the time a message like this one reaches them, comes the actual opening. That order never changes. Only the timing does. Here is the truth underneath everything you have felt, but could never quite explain to anyone, maybe not even to yourself. What you thought was rejection was actually a mind still running old software, inherited long before you had any say in the matter. And once that software is replaced, not your faith, not your effort, but the actual receiving mechanism inside you, you stop leaking every door that opens and start walking through them instead. That is the whole shift, not more prayer, not more hustle. A restored capacity to receive what you have already been asking for years. Think about your own life for a moment, honestly. How many times has an opportunity, a connection, a piece of information, or a simple decision point crossed your path, and you either did not see it clearly, or you saw it, and something in you hesitated so long, the door simply closed on its own? That is not weakness on your part. That is a specific, nameable pattern, older than you, and in a few minutes I am going to show you exactly where it lives and exactly how it formed inside you. For now, I want you to notice something small but important. You are still here. Most people who did not truly need to hear this would have already left by now. The simple fact that you are still listening, still present, still willing, is itself one of the 5 signs I just named. This is not only your pattern. Most of the time it was handed to you, quietly, generation after generation, by people who loved you but were never taught to receive either. Nobody sat you down and told you increase was safe. Nobody showed you what it looked like to hold wealth without guilt, without fear of losing it, without waiting for the other shoe to drop. So your mind learned the only thing it was shown, that having little was safer than having much. But a pattern that was learned can be unlearned, and a pattern that was inherited can be interrupted in one generation, starting with you, tonight. That is not a small promise. That is the entire reason this message exists. Here is the pattern, named plainly, no more circling around it. You can spend hours researching, planning, and talking about the opportunity in front of you, the deal, the job change, the investment, the conversation you know you need to have, and still find yourself frozen the exact moment it requires a real decision. Not because you lack information. You usually have more than enough of that already. Something else takes over instead, something quieter and much older than the situation itself. You tell yourself you are simply being cautious. You tell yourself you just need one more sign, one more confirmation, one more piece of advice before you move. But chosen one, that has never actually been the truth, and somewhere inside you, a part of you already knows it, even if you have never said it out loud. Right now, you might be thinking, this sounds more like psychology than something from God. That is a fair thought, and I am not going to argue with it. But the mind is one of the things God formed first, and understanding how yours works is not separate from your faith. It is part of stewarding what He gave you. Here is what is actually happening underneath the surface. Long before you could form a full sentence, your mind built a filter, with one single job: keep you safe by keeping you small. Because somewhere in your family line, having too much once meant becoming a target, or a burden, or a disappointment when it eventually disappeared again. That filter is still running today, decades later, completely uninvited, still doing its old job on a threat that no longer exists. We are going to call it the scarcity reflex. Picture a man who inherited a house full of furniture pushed against every wall, not because the room was small, but because someone before him was afraid of open space. He never questions it. He simply lives around the furniture, calling it normal. That is what the scarcity reflex feels like from the inside. Normal. Invisible. Never once questioned. The scarcity reflex does not usually show up as fear. It shows up as hesitation, as sudden tiredness right when a decision matters most, as the urge to research one more hour instead of simply acting, as a strange relief when the opportunity finally closes on its own so you do not have to choose. It is not weakness. It is old software, still doing exactly the job it was built to do, protecting you from a version of loss that does not even apply to your life anymore. So recontextualize everything now, slowly, on purpose. Those years you spent watching opportunities pass while you stood frozen, doubting yourself at the worst possible moments. That was never you being unworthy of increase. That was the scarcity reflex firing exactly as it was trained to fire, on schedule, right when something real finally came within reach of your hands. Here is what you can do with this, starting tonight, before this message even ends. The next time you feel that same freeze rise up in your chest, that pull to look away from a real decision in front of you, say quietly to yourself, "This is the reflex, not the truth." One sentence, spoken silently, is often enough to interrupt a pattern that has run unchallenged for years without ever once being named. If you just felt that reflex fire in you right now, remembering one specific moment it kept you frozen when something real was close, type ICIT below before you keep listening. Naming it, even in a single comment, weakens its grip on you a little more. Right now, some of you are thinking, I have tried to fix my money mindset before. I read the books. I said the affirmations. It did not work. I hear you, and I am not going to pretend that frustration is not valid, because it is real, and it deserves an honest answer instead of another slogan. There is a difference between changing your behavior and removing the actual mechanism underneath it. Affirmations can quiet the noise for a season, but they do not remove the reflex itself. The same way painting over a crack does not repair the wall behind it. That is not a failure on your part. That is simply the wrong tool being used on the right problem. What we are doing tonight goes underneath the behavior, to the mechanism itself. Now I want to pause and hold something in front of you before we go further. Over the past few years, something has been discovered and studied quietly by people who work with the mind at a much deeper level than affirmations ever could. Something most chosen ones, who care about exactly what we are discussing tonight, have never once been told about. I am going to tell you what they found later in this message. But right now, hold this question with me. What if the reason you keep freezing at the exact moment increase arrives is not weakness, and not even only the scarcity reflex we just named, but something even more specific sitting underneath it, older and quieter than either of us has said out loud yet? If you want to understand that fully before this message ends, type "understand" below right now, so I know you are ready to go deeper with me. Here is the deeper layer, chosen one, and this one goes further back than money itself. Picture the people who raised you, or the people who raised them. Most of them worked hard, stayed faithful, and stayed exactly at the same level their whole lives. Nobody in that line ever rose far past where the rest of the family stood, generation after generation, quietly agreeing without ever saying so. You tell yourself you simply have not worked hard enough yet, or the timing has not lined up. But that is not the real reason, and somewhere quiet inside you, you already suspect it is not. Here is what is actually happening. There is an invisible agreement, never spoken, never signed, that says rising too far above the people you love would feel like abandoning them. We are going to call this the loyalty ceiling. It is not selfishness that keeps you from breaking past it. It is love, misapplied, protecting a bond that was never actually at risk in the first place. So recontextualize this too, slowly. Every time you got close to a level of increase your family never reached, and something in you quietly sabotaged it at the last moment, that was never you being undisciplined or unfocused. That was the loyalty ceiling, protecting a connection that increase was never actually going to threaten to begin with. Here is your agency tonight, plain and simple. You can rise and still love them fully. You can carry more and still belong to them completely. Increase was never a betrayal of where you came from. It was always meant to become an inheritance that reaches backward and pulls the whole line up behind you. not one that carries you away from it. Hold that image for a moment, the whole line rising together, not one person breaking away from the rest. That image is not wishful thinking. It is closer to where this message is headed than you realize right now. Why does knowing all of this still not produce movement on its own? Why does insight stay as insight and never quite become action, even after a night like tonight? The answer is not only sitting in your mind anymore, chosen one. It is sitting in something that can work alongside your mind, something you have not looked at yet, something I am about to show you. Here is what you now know that you did not know a short while ago. The reason breakthrough kept slipping past you was never a lack of faith and never a lack of trying. It was two inherited patterns, the scarcity reflex and the loyalty ceiling, both running quietly underneath almost every decision that mattered. Naming them tonight gives you the first real tool, catching the reflex in the exact moment it fires, and calling it by name instead of obeying it the way you always have before. But the identity underneath all of this is simple. You are not someone waiting for money to fix a feeling inside you. You are a steward being prepared to carry more than you have ever carried, for a purpose far bigger than comfort alone. That is who your mind has been. That is not who your mind is required to stay. The clarity you just received is real, but clarity alone has never been the whole mechanism. In 1981, a scientist named Dr. Roger Sperry won the Nobel Prize for something that quietly explains everything we just walked through together. He discovered that the two halves of the human brain, when they operate in true synchronization, instead of fighting each other, unlock a level of clarity and decision-making that most adults simply never experience. Researchers found that around 98% of children still operate at this level naturally. By adulthood, fewer than 1 in 1,000 still do. Modern life, stress, and constant scarcity slowly erode it, not because you did something wrong, but because nobody ever taught you how to restore it. A woman in California, exhausted from years of financial anxiety, described the moment this synchronization finally clicked into place for her as the first time in over a decade she felt calm enough to actually see an opportunity clearly instead of freezing in front of it. A man in Texas, who had spent years calling himself simply bad with money, said the biggest shift was not new information at all. It was finally being able to sit with a decision without his chest tightening. That is because of what a team I am about to describe discovered. A team of neuroscientists led by Dr. Daniel Barone in New York spent years studying exactly this synchronization and built a simple 8-minute audio experience around it. They call it the Genius Switch. The Genius Switch. It is not a brain frequency gimmick. It is not a meditation app asking for more of your attention. It works with headphones, 8 minutes a day, guiding both halves of your brain back into the synchronization Dr. Sperry first described, gently, without effort, while you simply listen. The Genius Switch is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who understands that God prepared not only the promise, but the mind that must walk into it, and who is finally ready to stop leaking doors and start walking through them. In person, this kind of neural retraining through a specialist can run $300 an hour, and a comparable home device has sold for $7,000. The Genius Switch was built to sell for $49. Today, on this specific page only, it is available for $39, $10 less, with 4 bonuses included at no extra cost: a guided visualization audio, a smart grocery guide for foods linked to mental fog, a classic manifestation book, and a printable 5 habits guide. Every purchase is covered by a full, unconditional, money-back guarantee. Listen once. Listen 80 times. If it does not serve you, you are simply refunded. No questions, no conditions attached. I will say this plainly, because loss framed as fear is not something I want to use with you. The only real cost here is time, the same kind of time the scarcity reflex has already cost you for years without you noticing it happening. One thing worth naming directly: If you search for anything sounding similar online, you will find tracks with no real synchronization technology behind them at all, wearing a similar name, because doing so costs nothing. The description and the pinned comment below point to the one verified page, if your spirit resonates with any of this tonight. The tool I just described does not replace God, and it does not replace obedience, faith, or the work only you can do. It simply removes an old obstacle sitting in the way of a mind God is already restoring. A tool that helps the receiver receive, gives what God is doing even more of what it was always designed to land inside. And for the chosen one who felt something stir, the moment the mind was mentioned earlier tonight, that door is still open in the description below. It is a small step. But small steps taken from a clear mind have changed entire seasons before, and they can change yours. Before this message ends, I want to speak something over your life, chosen one, so stay with me for one more moment. Thank you, quietly, for the years this person spent believing when nothing around them agreed with them. Thank you for every door that felt closed, but was only ever waiting for a readied mind to walk through it. Right now, release the scarcity reflex, release the loyalty ceiling, release the guilt of wanting more than the family line ever received. Release the fear of what people will say once increase becomes visible. Release every excuse that ever felt safer than the truth. Release the belief that smallness was ever required to keep love intact. Release it, all of it, tonight, completely. I am a steward, not a beggar. I am one of the 1%, not by luck, but because my mind was finally ready. I am carrying this increase for a purpose bigger than comfort, and it starts the moment I stop leaking what was already released to me. If you receive that declaration tonight, if some part of you just sat up straighter hearing it, type, "I am ready" below before you go. And so it is.